Hello everyone, my name is Aubrey Nowitzki and I'm the proud founder and board director for the Student Event Planners Association. Thank you all so much for joining us today for our webinar on social media with Cindy Lowe. I'll be introducing her in about 5 minutes, so we'll get started then. In the meantime, if you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourself with your name and whatever school you belong to, or if you don't, you can just introduce yourself on the wall that you guys joined this webinar from. Also, this wall is the same wall that you will post any questions that you have throughout the webinar on, and I'll be sure to read those questions to Cindy so she can answer them. We'll also wrap up this webinar at the end with a quick question and answer session. So if you want to hold off your questions till then, you can do that as well, and we'll be addressing those at the end of the webinar. I also want to remind you that this webinar will be recorded and available on the SCPA YouTube channel, so if you're not able to join the actual live webinar, or if you want to send the link to a friend or family member or anybody, you can definitely find it on the SCPA YouTube channel after this. And if you are watching this webinar to receive credit through our professional development program for SCPA, the link to the questionnaire will be posted in the description of the video within about 2 to 3 days from the recording date. All right? So go ahead and introduce yourselves on the wall. If you guys have any technical difficulties, please let me know, and we'll get started in just 4 minutes now. I see a couple people who have joined. Becca, Karen, Shakira, nice to see you guys. A couple names I recognize. Brilliant. If you're just joining the call, I just wanted to reiterate, we're going to be starting in about 2 minutes. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself on the event wall, you can say your name and what school you belong to. Also, throughout the webinar, if you have any questions, feel free to post those questions on that wall, and we'll be addressing them as we go along. We'll also have a Q&A session at the very end, and this live stream will be recorded and available on the SCPA YouTube channel, so feel free to check it out there as well. All right, thank you all so much for your patience. I am so excited for this webinar. I do have to give you a little bit of background. I actually met today's speaker, gosh, in 2009, 2010, when SCPA was first getting its start, and I can tell you that Cindy had a huge impact on who we are today, whether she realizes it or not. I had actually attended my first ISIS event, and this was before launching SCPA. I remember going to that event, and Cindy was one of the first people that I met, and she actually introduced me to a lot of the professionals who helped us get our starting with SCPA, and also professionals who till this day still provide, volunteer and internship opportunities for our members, who have hired our members. So huge shout out and kudos to Cindy. She's been a huge role model for me, whether she knows that or not. I've followed her for many, many years now, and I'm so delighted to have her speaking about this topic. I'm going to give you a little bit about her background. So when Cindy Lowe started Red Velvet Events almost 12 years ago, so they just celebrated their anniversary, which is exciting, she did so much with the mission to outplan, outplay, and outparty. Cindy has grown the firm into delivering just that and more in meeting planning, event production, destination management services, and creative services. Red Velvet Events has earned multiple ISIS Esprit awards, as well as Esprit nominations, MPI, Planner of the Year, and most recently, Cindy received the Macomb School of Business Alumni Rising Star Award, which is amazing. You can connect to Red Velvet Events on all of their social media channels. And Red Velvet Events, a little bit about them. They're a full-service, internationally award-winning event management and destination management company. It's based and headquartered in Austin, Texas, and serving their clients now for 12 years, as I mentioned. The team prides themselves on creativity and strong branded events. Again, they aspire to outplan, outplay, and outparty with everything that they do. It's a phenomenal, phenomenal company. I can definitely let you know that Cindy has a huge reputation in the Central Texas region. Everybody knows Cindy, and a lot of people follow Cindy on her social media. She's definitely a guru, definitely someone to look up to, and she's definitely going to bring a lot of insight to today's webinar. So thank you so much, Cindy, for joining us.
Thank you, Aubrey, for having me, and congratulations to you, too, on what you've grown SEPA from an idea into now full-fledged, and then 15 other universities. I'm very proud of you. So keep up the great work.
Will do.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Assuming that everyone is with me here from all over. I heard that we might even have someone as far as Jamaica. I'm going to try to talk at my quote-unquote normal speed, so hopefully not too fast. But know that I do like to always encourage asking questions, so you can write it on the wall. Aubrey will summarize it for me later. Or if she sees something that is probably a little more urgent, she's welcome to interrupt in the midway through. I did break out this presentation into some basics to kind of talk about social media, because I didn't know where everyone was with as far as what their social media knowledge would be. So I know maybe some of the stuff at the very beginning may not apply to you because you already are a guru, but I definitely want to kind of hit home as to why social media is so very important for your career, and also if you decide to start your own business, how it's going to be important for growing that business. So I'm going to now first flip over to a slide deck that I have here, and let me get it open. And so what we've got here is, I want to first, this is the overview I was mentioning, is I want to talk about social media and then why it's important, ways to use it, and tips, and then of course ending with Q&A. As mentioned before, if there's anything that I can help answer or clarify, feel free to, because this is just a guideline, and it's hopefully allows me to cover as much as I can in the 1 hour we have together. So what is social media? So of course, naturally I Googled it, and per Wikipedia, it says that it's websites and applications that enable users to create and share content to participate in social networking. But let's be honest, I mean, even 5 years ago, I don't think I ever used the term social networking. So what does it really mean? And I think the best way to define it is when someone asks me, why is social media important to you? I try to explain to them, it is currently the most affordable way to self-promote not only yourself as a brand, but your business. 2, it's a great way to meet people that you don't know. For example, I always say, if there's someone you really, really want to know, I bet you they are on Twitter or on Instagram, and there's no quote-unquote permission where you have to ask them if you can follow them. I'm going to use Preston Bailey, the world-renowned florist, as an example. I don't know him. I'm not personal friends with him, but I follow him on Twitter and Instagram because I am inspired by him. And eventually, if you actually have genuine, authentic conversations, you could possibly get to know the person. I'm not going to say it's always guaranteed, but it's a way. Third, it's another avenue to reconfirm to people who you are and what that brand is about you. Because let's be honest, a lot of times when you're going out for that job, or maybe you're trying to sell to someone, they're going to look up on social media and see who you're all about. And this is more than just your LinkedIn resume. This is about how your voice is on Twitter, how your voice is on YouTube, whether or not you have any risque photos on Instagram. Those are the reasons why they look it up. And the last, of course, is don't ignore it. It's not going away. Social media is here to stay. Now, I'm not going to say necessarily Facebook is here to stay forever, but definitely social media is here to stay. So it's very important for you to embrace it. And I think for the younger generation, I think they already have embraced it. What I'd like to really go into more detail is how do you make sure it works to your benefit? Because I don't want it to actually hurt your chances of getting a job. Instead, I want it to help you get that unattainable position. The other is, don't forget, in the whole realm of just networking, as we talk about networking, I want you to remember two things I always hashtag, which I'll explain what a hashtag is later on. One is to pay it forward. Always think about the fact that it's not so much necessarily what they can do for you, but what you can do for the other person. And second is, sometimes when you do put yourself out there, you never know what the good karma will come back to you. So keeping all of that in mind, I think you'll be more open-minded and you'll be able to kind of feel and get to know your voice a little bit better. So if there's no specific questions, I'm going to jump right into what different ways of social media. So I love this personal picture. I can't take credit for it. It's been floating around the internet probably for 5 years at least, or maybe 4, because technically I don't think Last.fm and Instagram were even around back then. But this is social media explained in the terms of donuts, because there are a lot of social media elements out there, and how do you decide which one is right for you? For example, Twitter, you're telling people I'm eating a donut. Facebook, you're telling people you like a donut. Foursquare, this is where you go and eat donuts, and technically Foursquare has now changed over to Swarm. Instagram, you've now taken a vintage photo of your donut because you've got the color schematics and the touches. YouTube, you're filming how you're eating the donut. LinkedIn, you're telling them your skills include eating a donut. Pinterest, here's a donut recipe, or you can also pin maybe pretty pictures of donuts. Last.fm is a radio social media, and then of course Google Plus is I'm a Google employee who eats donuts. They're making fun of Google, of course, but I will say one of the positive things I've noticed about Google Plus, including this Hangout, is that if you comment on something on Google Plus, it actually adds to your SEO, and SEO is what's called your search identity, and that's what helps you get rankings on your website, and also how important you fall on just when people just search for you in general. Now, having read all this and sharing with you, this is obviously more of a satire way of looking at social media, but some of the things that they've said here are very, very true, which is each social media is used for a different purpose. So when you decide if you're going to use social media, whether it be for your own brand or for your company's brand or for even like an organization like SEPA's brand, you've got to strategically think through all the steps and think through how will I use it. Now, let me take another step back. Before you even dive in to try to get all these accounts, my recommendation is to start just with one and to do it very, very well before you dive into multiple. However, there is one thing I always like to encourage people to do, especially if you own the company, is when a new social media platform comes out, I highly, highly recommend automatically grabbing the vanity URL or the vanity name that you've been associated with. So for example, for me, it's my company, which is called Red Velvet Events. So when something new comes out, even though I may not be 100% sold on whether or not I'm going to use it, or I'm sold on the fact that I'm going to even be active on it, I grab the vanity name so that way, if I choose to use it later on, it will be there for me. And It's for consistency branding. So that's what I would encourage. So let's say it's your own personal name. Mine is Cindy Lowe. Then I would go out there, and every time a new social media platform would come out, I would claim Cindy Lowe. So those are my recommended tips to do that at the very highest level, at the very least. Now, here are my tips on how to use social media, and I know the list is just thrown out there, but I'm actually going to dive into each one just a little bit more because I think it's important to explain why I wrote these, because I think anyone that uses social media can see that this list is not brain surgery. It makes very common sense. You should all know it. But what's amazing to me is how very little of this is practiced. And that's where I think for you to be different from your colleague or from your own classmate when you're interviewing for a job, or if you are trying to fight for a certain sales piece of business, I think this is how you can make yourself stand out. The very, very first one is being genuine, and that means being authentic. I'm not saying if you have a sailor's mouth to go and curse everywhere on your Twitter account or your Instagram account or your Facebook, but what I am saying is don't lie or mislead someone if you don't like cats, but yet every day you post a cute little photo of a cat. Let's be true to what you like and what you favor and what you get inspired by. Because people, in the end of the day, it's the same reason why people want to meet you in person. They want to get to know you. They want to know what makes you tick. They want to know what makes you, makes you successful. They want to know what makes you go. And so that's what I mean by being genuine. Don't just post stuff just because your best friend's posting it. Don't post, for example, that selfie of being in front of that stage just because someone else posted it. I want you to genuinely be yourself. Now, having said that, the other thing is be very mindful of how you're going to become across. For example, if you're posting too many things showing off that that you're on a boat and you're on a plane and that you have the best new shoes or handbag that just came out, you've got to be aware. You've got to be aware that if you're not a luxury or what I call a lifestyle brand, you may be giving off that vibe that you're kind of arrogant. So you want to really be careful and mindful of what you're posting. That leads me to the second one. When you're starting out on social media, you should probably listen first before you even post anything. Listen so that you can understand how people talk. Listen so you can understand how things correspond. Listen so that you understand what the conversation is even happening. Twitter is very noisy. In fact, if you choose to follow not only your local people like on the news, but your friends, but also your what I'm quote unquote calling celebrities, your feed could get very cluttered very fast. So it's very important to kind of listen and prioritize what you're trying to get out of those folks. I often listen to my competitors. Yep, I said it. I follow my competitors and I listen to them. Why is that? Because you want to know what they're doing. I'm not saying stalk them. I'm just saying that you should know, for example, if I lose a piece of business to one of my friendly competitors and I later on see that they posted an Instagram photo of the same event and I can see why they won it, then it teaches me and it educates me on, maybe for that one event I should have tried a little harder, or maybe I should have sold it a certain way because it clearly this friendly competitor did a better job than what I had initially proposed. Going back to, again, the listening comment, you want to understand the jargon. For example, on Twitter, there's RT, stands for retweets. There's MT, stands for mentions. There's DM, stands for direct messages. Just like any acronym or any alphabet soup, I jokingly call it, you're going to have acronyms. So you need to learn how to use it wisely and how to use it smartly with your tweets, because you want, when you first start tweeting, you want to sound like you know what you're doing, because people will relate to people that they consider in the same category. Then, so you've now listened, you're being genuine, you've crafted these clever tweets in your head. My biggest thing is decide what your goal is, what your purpose is, for example. I've chosen 3 main goals for our own Twitter account for Red Velvet Events. Number 1 is to be the best knowledgeable tweeter out there about Austin events, about Austin in general. I want people to think that, man, if I ask Cindy that, she will be able to answer me because she knows Austin. Second, I always love to share articles that have to do with entrepreneurship, women running businesses, because I want to encourage other women, female business entrepreneurs, maybe those that are on the cusp, to go and try that out on their own. And then last, my other big one is I want people to know that I love food. I love the experience. I love the dining experience. I love just dining out. I love the chefs. I love everything about it. I'm not a cook, but I love that, and I want people to know that they can trust me if they reach out to me to ask for a restaurant recommendation. So those are my 3 goals when it comes to social media on Twitter. But if you ask me what is my goal for Instagram, I have a different set of 3 goals. Yes, they sort of overlap, but in general, they are a little different. For example, we try to post something new every day, just one, not necessarily multiples, a photo kind of describing what our work-life balance is here in the office, because some people are always curious. Second, we of course want to show off our events. We don't want people to be in the dark about it, but let's be honest, we do corporate events and not all corporate clients want us to share. So we have to be very mindful and very smart about which ones we can share. And then the last goal is I want to just show a variety. It's so easy to get into this rut and you end up sharing all the same types of things. For example, I've got people on Instagram, all they like to share is their selfie with eating the food. That's great if that's what you want, but I didn't want that monotonous, same style, every single photo, even though every day we were posting something new. So then going on to bullet number 4, which is you must stay true to your identified goals. Don't waver off of it, as sometimes it's very hard because you're working as fast as you are, you're posting stuff, you're trying to be witty and clever, and then one day you're like, oh, I can be a little loose, I'm going to post that. Oh no, you're going to regret it. So please, please, please make sure that you always ask yourself, does this tie back to one of my original goals? And second, which is the last bullet, would this get me in trouble with my grandmother or mother? If the answer is yes, you probably don't want to post it. I'm going to say the obvious, which I would hope I'd never have to say this because people would be like, duh, but nude photos of yourself, not a smart choice. Talking bad about someone, not a smart choice. Complaining all the time, not a smart choice. So please be aware that you do have a boundary that you have to respect so that you aren't oversharing in general. I love at this time to actually use one of the examples because someone asked me, and I don't want to, let me think about how I phrase this. Someone asked me, how does HR, technically use all the social media, especially because that scares some people. They're like, I want to lock up my account, etc., which I get, but I think there should always be at least one quote-unquote public account, whether that be your Twitter or whether that be your Instagram, because, or, to be safe, to be honest, is LinkedIn even. Because if I search for someone and I don't find anything on a Google search or a social media search, I do find it very odd, especially in our business. Our business is very much of a social business. Our business is about people. Our business is about connection. So when you don't have any social media presence, it makes me question whether or not you really understand how to navigate the social media world, especially when it comes to events. And let me tell you, our number one request right now, besides interactivity at events, is we have to somehow integrate social media into the live event. So not only is this good practice for you as a person, but it's also good practice as for just how to apply it at the everyday event. So just remember that this is important, that you need to practice it every day. You need to understand it. It's not something to ignore. It's not something that's just going to go away. And at that point, I actually would love to turn it over to Q&A. Aubrey, can you tell me if there's been any questions yet? And I'll flip back over to the screen so people can see me.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Okay, awesome. Brilliant, brilliant, and brilliant. Yes, there have been some questions.
Great.
One of the questions is it acceptable to connect with people on LinkedIn that don't have any shared connections with, or that you don't have any shared connections with?
That is a great question. So for me personally, my rule is no. But let me tell you, there are two types of LinkedIn users I have identified with. One, they make it very clear. For example, I'm going to use Aubrey as an example. When Aubrey first reached out to me, I didn't know her yet. And I explained to her why I didn't connect with her on LinkedIn yet, because we had not met. But then, after we met and after we chatted, I was happy to accept her request. And the reason why I fall into that bucket is because people that I network with actually do look at my connections and ask me. So they say, oh, I see you're connected with Aubrey. I'm thinking about using her or working with her. How do you feel about her? If I have never met Aubrey before, then it's like as if it doesn't bode well in my mind, at least. It doesn't bode well in explaining, oh, actually, I don't know. I connected with Aubrey, but I don't really know her. And then they were like, wait, so why would you say you're connected with her? So personally for me, on my LinkedIn and on my Facebook, I have two rules. LinkedIn, I definitely have had at least met you once, even at a networking event, chatted, anything, before I can accept your connection. I will even go as far as chatting on the phone. Like, we don't have to do a Skype or Google Hangout. I'll do that. But Facebook, it definitely has to be at least in person, because that is one of those areas where Facebook, I do share a little bit more personal stuff. So it doesn't make sense for why I would open the doors. It's like opening up Pandora's box and then having someone come in and look at your inside life when normally I don't see them day to day. So that's a great question. But personally, the way I use it, I would have some rules around it.
Perfect, perfect. And let's take that scenario, and let's say it's a student who's gone to a networking event and maybe has met you in person. Have you had any examples, or could you give an example of maybe an acceptable way for a student to say, hey, would it be okay if I connected with you on LinkedIn after this event?
Yep. One is definitely, of course, asking me in person at the event. Always happy to answer that. Second is when you send the event or the LinkedIn request, there's a way that you can customize it just a little bit. I would highly recommend that, because anyone that's well networked, their first reaction is when they see the name, they go, Joe Smith. I don't know who that is. Second is, though, if they see the personal message and say, hi, Cindy, I know we haven't met yet, or we just met at the SEPA event. I would love to connect with you. Is it possible? It's much more, it's warmer, and it's more open, and it's also more open, conducive to a two-way conversation than just one of those where I just want to connect with you because I just want to add another connection.
Right. Right, absolutely, absolutely. Another question was, can Pinterest be utilized as a social media platform that could help me in my job search, and how so?
I think it depends. I think it depends on what type of job you're looking for. I think if you are, for example, interviewing for a creative role, if you have a Pinterest wall and a bunch of boards that show how you think, so for example, maybe categorizing them by what inspires me, what's a great looking event, what's a great menu, I think that someone to look in from the outside would be very impressed. But if you are trying to necessarily find a job, I don't necessarily think it's a place where you can find a job per se. Now, I will say, let me use an example of what GSD&M did recently with Pinterest. And I thought this was very clever because it showed other people how GSD&M, again, used something that normally people tag recipes, photos, wedding photos, and they used it on how to sell Austin. So they created a South by Southwest Pinterest, and it was basically bars, hipster bars, techie bars, I'm shy bar, I'm very outgoing bar, hookup bars. I mean, they categorized all these different things, and you went into each one. And I thought it was so clever because, again, they took something that was already there but used it in a very different manner. And that, to me, showed me how GSD&M thinks. So if I was looking for a company to think outside the box, per se, or to even just be super creative, to me, that's a big turn on because I just saw how they used a simple tool like Pinterest and turned it around and did not make it another wedding board. So I don't think necessarily, again, where you more about a company. I absolutely think it's a great place to learn more about a company or about a person.
Absolutely, absolutely. While we're on that topic of having an account that can help you with that, I can hear myself. Hold on. Where would you advise that students who have a preference or any recommendations on how to integrate whatever social media platforms they are on that they would want employers to see on maybe their resume or their business cards? Is a good way to do that?
And that's a great question. And you know what? I don't think I have been seeing that on the resumes lately because, it's still standard like email address and address and phone number. But I think it's super smart. If you are proud of that profile, you should definitely have the link to LinkedIn. I would put that first because that is the professional resume. To me, LinkedIn is where I would go. For example, if you've already been in the industry, LinkedIn is the first place I would go to look and see what your work history is. Second is if you are proud of what you are like on Twitter, I would add the little tweet bird and I would put your handle there so I can go and look myself and see what you tweet about. And if you have a blog, for example, if I'm interviewing for a writer, absolutely including that URL on the resume is key because we do look at all of those things. And in fact, even if you don't put it on there, like I said earlier, we are going to Google it because we want to know, are there any skeletons that we need to be embarrassed about or afraid of in your closet?
Absolutely. While we're on the topic, I apologize. On the topic of LinkedIn, how can students, first of all, if you're an SCPA member or anybody can have a LinkedIn profile, especially as a student, you guys, as a professor too, you guys should be working to update that on a consistent basis. That is your virtual resume. So definitely time investment in that. But how can you leverage LinkedIn to kind of maintain and even grow your professional network as
No, I think that's a great question, and I have been actually experimenting lately with LinkedIn, and I feel like they've actually added a few new tools that allow for not only students, but even like myself. Let's say I decided I wanted to go interview for someone. They've added a few new tools that really allow you to enhance and show what you do best. So one, like you already said, you must keep your resume up to date. So for example, let's say you won an award for best cookie recipe or whatever. Add that under your awards and accolades section because every time you update it, which I do not recommend updating it every week, okay? I'm saying update it maybe 6 months, 12 months. Every time you update it, it automatically emails your network to say, FYI, Cindy Lowe added this to her profile. Congratulate her. Or FYI, Cindy Lowe changed jobs. Congratulate her. That is what the social media aspect of LinkedIn does, which I think is very, very interesting because as long as you're going forward, not backwards, meaning you're moving ahead of your career, it's a great tool. But if you're going backwards and you're sliding, then that's up for debate. Now, second is there are two ways you can or there's probably more than two ways, but two ways I'm very aware of that you can really get out there and using your LinkedIn profile. One is you can actually search. For example, let's say I know I want a job as an event coordinator for a restaurant. I type it in that search field, and it will tell me which one of my friends is connected to someone looking for a job just like that. And I have a choice on whether or not I want to reach out to the restaurant or my friend to get more information. So that is number one, okay? Number two is there is now an area in LinkedIn where you can actually publish what it looks like articles to make you look like an expert. So for example, we have been publishing lately different little articles about how to grow your company, how to hire, how to maintain your marketing reputation, and each time we publish it, it's just like an article like on BuzzFeed or whatnot, and you get votes. The more likes you get, which I think they also happen to use a thumbs up like Facebook, which I don't know if that's legal now that I think about it, because I think it might be trademarked, but the more thumbs up you get, the higher your ranking goes on LinkedIn. So if for any in the future, if I get searched and I go, hey, I'm looking for an event coordinator to talk about something, these articles will pop up. And that will, again, allow me to be at a certain ranking. And so that, to me, is a great way to kind of put yourself out there and really tell people, this is what I'm great at, and look at it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm going to add one more addition to that that's fairly new to LinkedIn is they have now enabled you to add media or like pictures to your LinkedIn profile. So it's a great way to break it up, and also for the industry that we're in, we're very visual people by nature, but kind of showing and demonstrating your portfolio that you have from events that you planned, or maybe awards that you have received. That would also be a great way to enhance your resume. Tell me, Cindy, how might students who are about to graduate leverage their existing or growing networks?
Well, one, let me tell you a story about what happened with me before any of this social media was even present. Because, mind you, I graduated from college. Oh my gosh, I graduated from college 16 years ago, which, that sounds so long ago. But before... I know, even when I say it out loud, I'm like, no, that can't be right. It was only 5 years ago, but there was no social media. So let me tell you what I did, though, that made networking, why it's so important, and why, when you just asked that question, I want to encourage each and every one of you to really build up on your network, which is I kept in touch with these friends through email and a snail mail. And what I would do, and this was before Facebook, mind you, I would email them maybe every 6 months, maybe sometimes a year, kind of like think of it as your holiday card. I would email them and say, hey, everyone, I'm still living in Austin. My dog's doing well. I'm here at this company. I hope everyone else is doing well. I would love to see you if you're visiting Austin. Let's connect. So I kept in touch with people that way. That was what happened pre-Facebook days. When I decided to start RVE 12 years ago, what happened was something that I didn't realize, I never anticipated it, is that all those times when I emailed people with the letters, is that they kept in touch with me and they found it to be beneficial to understand what was happening in my life. And so when I decided to spin off to start this company, they actually gave me my business without me even having to market. Because they already knew, they were like, you're always so organized. You've always told us what you've been up to. I feel like I know what's going on. So when one of my emails naturally went out to tell them I was starting this business, it was incredible. Several people just said, hey, do you think you would want to bid on this event? And I go, whoa, I just started it literally last week. And they were like, I know, but you kept in touch. I would love to give you the business. We always knew you would do this. And I mean, again, I had no idea I would get such support from these friends. And that is why it is so important to keep in touch with your network now. Do not think of it as, networking is only a thing I do when I need a job. Think of it as something you need to do year-round. And also, if you genuinely like these people, you should be keeping in touch with your friends.
Absolutely. I think a great expression is dig well when you're not thirsty. Don't wait until a month or two before graduation to start reaching out to people in your network. Because I've had students in class telling Cindy this, saying that they felt like they were using the people in their network if they actually reached out to them about needing a job or just their status in their life. And it's a great example of what you did, because I did something extremely similar before I was graduating and leading up to that. Is I would actually send to my network and to my family and friends, hey guys, I'm graduating soon. This is what I might like to do. I'm hoping to live in Houston. And I did get a lot of referrals from friends and family by doing that, by reaching out to them and letting them know, because I think a common mistake that we all have is we feel like everybody knows what's going on in our lives.
Yes.
Nobody particularly knows. So can't assume that they do know. So don't wait or expect people to reach out to you with that offer. You have to be proactive, guys, in doing that. The other thing I was talking to Cindy about prior to this webinar was leverage your existing network, leverage the organizations that you're part of, the classes that you go to, guys. Make it a conscious effort to meet new people every opportunity that you get, because you never know how that person is going to impact your life, or rather how you're going to impact theirs. Cindy made a great point earlier about not necessarily thinking about yourself, but really paying it forward. How can I help this other person? And I was telling you guys, what she speaks is only the truth. Okay, there's so much good karma that comes back to you by just being a person who connects people to other people, by literally listening to people, having a conversation, and thinking in your head, how can I connect this person to someone else? How can I talk to this person? And I can't tell you how many times I've done that exact same thing, approach to conversations, and it's come back to help me later on when you'll connect with somebody else, or be a recommendation or whatever it may be. But definitely don't go in with that mindset. So definitely do that. So I want to challenge all of you, especially those who are members of SCPA, when you have your next member meetings, make it a point to introduce yourself to 2 new people that you do not know. And beyond that, you guys, it's really important to exchange contact information, because you can shake hands all day, but the likelihood of remembering that person's name and how to get in touch with them, you basically have wasted your time at that point. So make sure that you're exchanging some sort of communication, getting their phone number, or asking them if it's okay if you add them on Facebook, and whipping out your phone, because I know you have one, and adding them on Facebook or adding them on LinkedIn or whatever it may be, and keeping in touch with them just as well. And I think you guys realize, and you kind of think ahead, everyone that you're surrounded with in your classes, if you're in a hospitality program or school, or if you're part of SCPA, eventually all of these people are going to be in your professional network when you graduate. They're all going to be event planners or professionals, or work in different aspects of the event industry. And Cindy, I'm going to stop for a second, and can you give some light, or shed some light on how interconnected the hospitality industry is?
Oh, very much. I mean, let me just kind of give you, so I've been in it now for 12 years, and the people I've managed, so I want to also highlight one other thing too, is that when I first started, every time I got a business card, I would immediately try to do it that same day, just because you want to be on top of mind. I email them back and say, it was so nice to meet you at such and such meeting. I hope that our paths will cross again. So those same people I met 12 years ago, even though I know I've been in my same position, but and it's been 12 years, I've managed to follow them in 5 different organizations since then. So it is so important to keep in touch, because if they're meant to be in the hospitality business, and unfortunately in the hotel side, it is encouraged to jump from hotel to hotel, because that's how you move up your career, how you move up the ladder. And that's when it's worked in my favor to keep in touch with them, because the person I might have befriended 12 years ago that started out as the front desk is now the general manager of a hotel. So that's the thing that you have to keep in mind, that you don't look at it as short term, and never look at it as like, how is that person going to help me? Look at it as, again, how am I going to help them? And in the end, they will help me back out, because I'm helping them. Those are all very, very, it's all intertwined, and you just it's one of those things that you have to work on every day. Don't take it for granted.
Absolutely, and I think a good thing you mentioned was top of mind, and how to keep top of mind. Sending periodic updates. I think something I heard from a speaker at a conference when I was in school was he made it a point whenever it was someone's birthday on Facebook to always write happy birthday on their wall, or give them some sort of custom message. So at least once a year, you're sending them, keeping top of mind, even in just that simple way. So
I would even take it one step further. Yeah, I would even take it one step further. So if there's someone that you really admire or really like, add it to your personal calendar, because I actually did this before Facebook was even popular, and that is actually one of the reasons why people still actually give me business, is because they go, you have to be the most organized person, because even without being Facebook friends, you know when my birthday is. And that is what impresses people, is that if they feel like you are organized in the events business, they will give you more clout and more ability to be able to help them. So think about that. I try to, every morning, my routine normally after I get up in the morning is I wish those people, if it's their birthday, their anniversary, or if their kid had a birthday, I wish all of them that the morning up, because that's my routine every morning.
Absolutely. We had a great question from Becca Reed. For asking this question, and thank you also for being the outreach coordinator for SCPA Texas State and serving as a leader in our organization. She said, what do you think about putting QR codes on your resume as a link to your LinkedIn page, or just utilization of QR codes in general? What's your thought?
I think, so if you're applying for a tech company, I think it's clever, because those tech companies will know what it is. I'll be honest, I don't think the hotel will know because certain industries are just a little bit far outdated behind. Does it hurt? No, I don't think it hurts, but I would have a second, like a link that is like a bit.ly link or something that also tells them where to find it. But I do think it's clever, especially if you're interviewing for a tech company, because then they show them, you're showing them that you are savvy about knowing what a QR code is, because some people don't even know what that is. So.
Absolutely. And I
think the more important piece is that you must have a link. You need to have a LinkedIn profile, and then second is I would highly include it on your resume, because I think that is smart.
Absolutely. I always recommend to students that, either way, employer's going to do some searching on you, and if you don't direct them to where you want to go, they may end up where you don't want them to go. The other thing I highly recommend, if you've never done this, is Google yourself, okay? See what kind of stuff comes up, because that's essentially what's going to come up for them. So some pictures that you put on your social media profile when you were 10 years old, or maybe you're 10 years ago, you're inappropriate, whatever. That stuff can come to surface, so make sure that you guys are being aware of that. A question that I've gotten from several different students, and you kind of alluded earlier to, you recommend starting one account and doing that well, sticking with that. I have a lot of students who are frantic coming to graduation, and they're like, Aubrey, should I start a blog? Or I need to start a blog. What is your recommendation on that?
I'll be honest, blog is a lot of work. So unless you're a natural writer, I would actually choose the easier social media, which is either Instagram or Twitter. Because to me, again, Facebook is a little bit mix of personal and public and private. So I think it's important to have something. And then of course there's LinkedIn. But a blog is, if I would personally, my biggest pet peeve is I don't like it when people start a blog and then they don't follow through. So they post, take a break for 3 months, post again, take a break. That's just not good. So my thing is, why sign yourself up for something so difficult to maintain, and why not do something easier like an Instagram or Twitter account? And definitely, again, like I said, create a LinkedIn account, but a LinkedIn is so different from those other two that it should be a no-brainer that you already should have a LinkedIn account. So that's my 2 cents. Yeah.
I agree with you 110%. I always advise against it unless they have a very particular niche, something they have a lot of things to talk about or content about. It is something that it can be a hindrance. If people were to go to that blog and see that you only did 1 or 2 posts, that doesn't really teach your longevity and really ability to develop a blog correctly. So that can reflect poorly on you. So
I agree.
I agree with what Cindy suggests. Another question: Are there any social media platforms that students use when trying to connect with a potential employer?
Wait, say that again. Ask the question again.
Yes. Are there any social media platforms that one should not use when trying to connect with a potential employer?
That's a good question. I've never been asked that. I don't think there is. Oh, wait. Okay, maybe Tinder. But no employer should be looking for you on Tinder, okay?
Oh, God.
So, I mean, there's so many social media platforms, but that would be about it. Like, yeah, I would probably draw the line there.
Definitely.
I think you can look it up on your private time.
Yeah, right. To add to that, I think maybe you had kind of mentioned earlier about how you kind of feel Facebook is more a personal platform, something that you have with your friends. So I personally would recommend not adding people to Facebook, but rather finding a LinkedIn profile or a Twitter profile or Pinterest profile over Facebook personally. That would be my suggestion.
Now, eventually it will change. Like when you get into the work field, and then you become friends with someone and a coworker, and you guys want to be Facebook friends. That's totally understandable. But I agree. If you're interviewing for a job, please don't ask them to be your friend on Facebook, because that's a bit more personal. They're interviewing. They're looking at it as a job. So you really should stay with LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. Facebook is very personal.
Absolutely. A good point to on that is, so when going into an interview, you don't necessarily have it printed out right there, but prior to going into that interview, you definitely want to, if you know who you're going to be interviewing with, look them up on LinkedIn. Check out their background, some of those points, for sure.
Yeah, because let me give you an example of another friend. She looked up her interviewer, and then she found out they were in the same sorority, and so she had a connection. And again, you want, bottom line is with networking is you're trying to find that connection. oh my gosh, we're both from Austin, or oh my gosh, we both went to UT, or oh my gosh, we both love, yeah, daffodils. I mean, I don't know if that will ever be on a profile, but my point is that you want to find something that y'all can connect on, because that's also the same that's the same skill when we train people for sales, you know? So.
Absolutely. What are some industry social media-based groups or hashtags or people that you would recommend, students or professionals or even people starting their business to follow?
Yeah.
In addition to related events, of course.
Yeah, no, great question. So if you are in the industry of like events, the most common one right now is events, EVENTS, profs. So PROFS, meaning event professional. The other ones are MPI, obviously, because that stands for Meeting Professional International, but it's not necessarily a hashtag per se, because so you might need to just search for that word. Right. ISIS, of course. Right now, ISIS is using We Are ISIS, meaning we, WEAREISES. So all ISIS members have been using that to kind of self-promote. I personally, I mean, I make up hashtags, but I do like it because people can kind of get the point right away. So if I'm talking about a design element, I do hashtag design. If I'm talking about DMCs, I do hashtag DMC. If I'm doing tours, I talk about hashtag tours. I talk about Austin a lot. I hashtag Austin. So it's like a matter of just figuring out what is it that you're searching for and going about it that way to find out who else is talking about it. And for me personally, I love to connect with people. Like, let's say I'm following someone else and then I see they retweeted someone else. I will take the time to click on that link, look at that person's profile that they just retweeted, look at a few past tweets, like the most immediate ones, and see, would this be something I would be interested in the future? Like, do they tweet to my liking? Because if so, I'm going to follow them. Because the more you learn, the more you put yourself out there, the more you're aware. And so that's the way I look at Twitter.
You brought up a question in my mind. What is your opinion on, of course, in trying to increase your SEO and increase your followers, that's typically what everyone's goal is in life, is to increase their follower count. What is your opinion on quality over quantity, both in the people who are following you and the people that you're following?
I'm definitely a quality over quantity. Like, for example, I don't even know what my current count is, but I know I have a lot of followers on social media, on Twitter specifically. But what really matters to me more is who's actually engaging with me. Back to that original authenticity and engagement. If they're chatting and they're responding back and they're clicking on my links, those to me are much more valuable than just having 1,000 people that follow me for nothing. Keep in mind also, excuse me, is that there are definitely certain people that are one-time users of Twitter. They'll follow me and then they might not be back on for a long time. So I know that that is not as accurate of account as I'd like it to be, and hence it goes back to the authenticity. If I know that they write back and we actually have a banter going back and forth of little things, to me that is worth so much more than having that extra 1,000 followers.
Absolutely. Cindy, phenomenal job today. I think this is just a wealth of information, hopefully a new perspective to those who, especially in our generation, they know a lot about social media, but not necessarily how to leverage it. And I think you did a great job on hitting on how different social media platforms are used for different things. So it's important, guys, when you are utilizing multiple platforms to build your personal brand or even your business brand, that you tailor the message to that particular outlet, that you're more conscientious, of what you're posting and what kind of impression that leaves with people, and again, developing that brand, keeping that on point. I do want to also challenge all the SCPA members, if you don't already know that, so when you log into the member portal on the SCPA website under member resources, you guys do have access to a membership directory, okay? And when you sign up as a member, you are given the opportunity to include a LinkedIn, a Twitter, and or a Facebook profile link, so a hyperlink within your submission. So you can actually go into the membership directory and see other students nationwide who have included that same contact information. And since we're all part of this SCPA family, I highly recommend that you guys take the opportunity to connect, especially especially at minimum with the people who are within your own chapter, guys, so you guys can start to build that professional network. Again, I mentioned earlier, go a little bit outside of your comfort zone and make an attempt to introduce yourself to different people, and especially the leaders of your chapters. You definitely want to get in with people who are the movers and shakers in this organization, so that you too can get on that level. Okay? Just keep going for it. And I just want to thank you, Cindy, so much for all the content and input that you have given. Is there anything else that I know we're going to get off here and be like, oh my gosh, you could have asked for this. Anything else that you can think of? Any words of wisdom for the students?
Well, I was going to say, let's start off by now is that if you want to keep in touch, you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at Red Velvet Events. That's Red Velvet Events, EVENTS. And, of course, you can also go to our website, redvelvetevents.com, and you can connect with me that way because I am on all the social media fronts. We also have a Facebook page as well, but we are definitely more active on Twitter and Instagram. So let's connect that way, and feel free to ask me questions if you think of it afterwards. I'm happy to help. I love seeing what you've done, Aubrey, seriously, and this is great because this was not there when I started this business, and I think it's a much-needed resource, so it's a great way to share it with everyone.
Well, thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate it. You continue to be an inspiration for me, and I'll continue to follow you, not follow you. So thank you so much for your contributions, and congratulations on your 12-year anniversary.
Thank you.
It's only going to go up from here. I know it. So thank you once again, and thank you to all who tuned in today. Again, this video recording will be available on the SEP YouTube channel within 2 days. You should be able to look in the description below for a link to the questionnaire that will correspond with this webinar. So if you'd like to credit through the professional program for SCPA, or even make up an attendance absence, you're welcome to do that. And Cindy, thank you so much for your time. And you all have a great evening.
Bye. Good night, everyone.
Bye.